Yes, I think we are good to start the session now. So I think Mike, you can start. So before that, we have some do and don'ts. So these are our housekeeping rules. Please mute your line so that during the presentation there shouldn't be any issues. If you have any question and answer, we have Slack channel. So hope you have joined these things. So you can ask any question on the Slack, and we have a chat box here. So you can post a chat here. So I'm handing over to you, Matt.
Hey everyone, so I'll just make sure I'm in the chat there as well, so I keep an eye on it. Okay, so hey everyone, my name's Matt. Apologies for the apocalypse beard, but I've been locked in my house for a long time, but at the same time I've been able to virtually travel, so thanks for having me. I appreciate the time, and again, I take it as an honor when you say that you got a lot of feedback and got a lot of people to show up. So hopefully that has something to do with what you're doing and not with me, because then yeah, I think then we'll have a lot of people following me around. So asking, so I want to enable everyone here on this call today to hopefully jump in and get acquainted and try a couple of new things. Hopefully, maybe they're not new, maybe they are new. I'll be sure to pause and ask around, and don't be shy to let me know where you want to go with some of this stuff. I would like it to be very interactive if possible. So I'll give you at Splunk we have this thing called 1,000,000 data points. Every Splunker has 1,000,000 data points about them, so I'll give you a couple about myself. I am a Splunk staff consulting sales engineer. I kind of let them call me whatever they want. As you can see, I don't know if you can see this. See, I'm a lighting kid before I was in tech. So I've been messing around with Splunk since around 2013. I was a customer in the telecom space and started to use Splunk for some pretty cool stuff a long time ago, and have been lucky enough to keep doing that for until now, this moment. So that's cool. I've been able to do a lot of things at Splunk, and right now, or the last couple of years, I've been focusing on new stuff, new technology introduction, exploring integrations, and I kind of like to think of myself as someone who can kind of put a couple, Splunk on the tool belt and jump into any room and Splunk whatever's in there. I hope that's how you feel as well when you use the product, and hopefully I can show you something that can get you to focus more on delivering that and less on maybe greasing the wheels of the big machine. Now, unless you like to do that, but I mean, again, here's what that's going to look like. So I'm going to stop my camera just to make sure I can share full resolution on my screen. I know Google Meet's pretty good, but I'm just going to stop here and I'm going to get right into it. Before I do, a couple more just kind of personal notes other than working at Splunk. I currently reside just outside of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I am north of the wall, as I would call it, of my American counterparts. And we have a growing team here in Splunk Canada that has been growing over quite a long time. And we do have a lot of customers that cover the swath of kind of technical verticals that you'll find there, fintech, telecom, big tech, education, healthcare, et cetera. So just to give you kind of a sense of the kind of folks I'm working with on a day-to-day basis, and kind of shapes my view of some of the stuff we're doing today. And then I have a beautiful wife and 2 children. I was a film kid before I came to Splunk, so I like to give analogies and paint pictures and tell stories. So that seems to go a long way here. So why don't I tell you one right now? So I'm going to stop my camera and then I'm going to share my screen. Let me close all the secret stuff. I'll keep Slack open, although that might be a nightmare. Let me close all my other malwares here. All right. All right. And here we go. Okay. So thanks again. Thank you for having me. And if you have any questions about me or what I do at Splunk or anything else, I'm pretty approachable, and you can find me in the Splunk user group chat at any time, probably times I shouldn't be in there too. So here's the obligatory, can you see my screen? I assume that you can. Yeah, I see Aleem nodding. So, okay, let's jump right in. So today I've actually published a GitHub or a GitLab repository on my own personal little Kubernetes lab that I'm serving, so that while we talk today, you don't have to, be in note-taking mode or feel like you can't go back. So just let it wash over you. Again, there's going to be a lot of things today that, again, I would say something that has served me well from film school days is this concept of suspending your reality. And what that means is to just let it, suspend all the things you question in life and just like, let's just go through this, and then we'll see where we come up on the other end. You'll enjoy movies more that way too, right? So this is a user group repository on GitLab that I'm currently serving to the internet from my lab here sitting behind me in Canada on Kubernetes. Okay. And the reason I'm telling you that is because I'm serving you some tools that you can play with that I hope will get you to click this. And what I mean by that is a lot of what we're doing here is really to inspire like the confidence to click, like to adopt and use the product. And the new ways we use the product, so that you can focus on the things you got to do to make become a data rock star at your whatever it is that you do. Everything, right? Data to everything, right? So again, here, hopefully you can see this. I shared the link in the user group chat. I'll also put it in the Meet just in case folks are not. Don't have both. And if anybody can't reach that, just ping me on the Slack or whatever. We'll find it, figure out what's up. Some workplace VPNs will block it. If you're going through a proxy, things like that, just be aware. So what this GitHub repo is just a place for you to come back to if you get lost, okay? And what I'm gonna do here is just cover something very simple. I'm gonna put some slides in here later too, but I just got to be careful. I just got to double check I can put what I want to put in here on here, but I'll show them to you regardless. Again, future looking statements are coming, right? Alert, right? So here comes some of the non-future looking things. What is available to you today? So I came here today to cover mostly what is nebulously called Kubernetes. More specifically, I'm covering the latest Splunk operator for Kubernetes release, which is currently in active beta and is public at the same time. So while we are, we have a traditional kind of Splunk enterprise machine beta, big corporate machine beta going on, we also have been beta basically in development for almost 2 years now, right? And so the latest release you'll find on our GitHub repo, Splunk operator. And before I go way into the future and dive into this, we're going to take a kind of a slow walk towards it together so that we don't lose anybody on the way. Okay. So again, I just wanted to, show you where we're headed. We're headed towards using the Splunk operator and the latest release, which is 2.1, right? And we are going to deploy that in order to make setting up Splunk and experimenting Splunk and playing with Splunk from a standalone to a multi-site cluster journey. We used to say at Splunk from desktop to data center. I kind of want to show you what that looks like today. Okay. Any questions so far? I'm going to go very slowly here. Again, I don't want to go 100 miles an hour, but we're going to start this path here. Very simple, right? We're going to walk this journey together in a moment. But before I do, any questions or, before I dive deep into this stuff, any first thoughts, or when you hear Splunk operator, what first jumps to your mind? I'll pause for a minute. I'm looking for my water. It's a good habit. I'll take a big gulp of water. Anybody? Has anybody used it?
Now I'm new to this Splunk operator.
Okay. Does anybody here work on Kubernetes day to day?
Yeah, I do sometimes, but not frequently.
Okay, and so again, this is good because should I? Would it be? I guess what's the best way I can interact? Uh, can I assume that we're all Splunkers attacking Kubernetes rather than coming from any other angle? Like, does this path look accurate to you from where you're most comfortable to where you would like start to get out into areas where you're maybe stepping out on an unknown territory?
Yeah, that
So
that
Splunk.
suits us. So we're a Splunker onto the Kubernetes. That suits us.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Anybody else? I'll take another moment. I know it's uncomfortable for sometimes, but I want to wait. I don't because I'll just keep talking if
Yeah,
you
it's
let me. So
perfect.
I want to. Yeah. Cool. Cool. So in this repository, is anybody able to reach this? Are you able to reach this? Here, I think I gave you the root directory.
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's have a little chat about what are you even here to talk about, right? What even is a Splunk operator? Why do I even care, right? So in order to answer that question, there are some fundamental kind of steps that we are building upon. So I'm going to take a slow walk through them. And I kept it very simple. I'm going to add to this as time goes by. And trust me, there's a lot under each of these rocks. But let's keep it simple, right? It's a new year. Let's keep it simple. So we have Splunk Enterprise. You know it, you love it, you hate it, whatever. There's Splunk D, right? And that is a 10, 12-year-old monolith, like a majestic monolith. It does many, many things. There's many, many things that are hidden behind this thing called Splunk D. And in the past, you would download Splunk D, or today you would download Splunk D's tarball from the internet, or you would get it from somewhere else, whatever your flavor is, and you would insert Splunk D into the big machine that you're running, however that looks, right? After that point, it gets kind of cloudy for most real customers because as I walk into your cloud, everything changes, right? We no longer like our common user group goals kind of end. Well, they don't end. They change. They fork as soon as we walk into whatever it is you take Splunk D into. And so one of the things that we've seen over the last 10 years is, Splunk then gets automated by some layer. And yes, this says Ansible, but again, suspend your reality. You could flip this for anything else. Choose your vendor, choose your automation gods as you will, right? And what that allowed us to do, all of us, Splunk Cloud, Splunk Internal, Splunk External, Splunk users, it allowed us to automate and start to get a more, declarative and reliable way to work with Splunk D, right? And then in 2016, 2017, 2018, we started to see, hey, that's awesome. Now, you know what I can do? I can take all of that automation and I can stuff it into an image such that it will run in any data center as long as the customer can pull this, cartridge off the shelf, or this Game Boy game off the shelf, or this, insert analogy here, pull off this package software and plug it into my big machine and it will run. It's amazing, right? It has all the things it needs, nothing more, nothing less, right? And then around 2019 and 2018, 2019, as that became a reality in some large data centers, mostly in technology strategy groups inside of everybody's org, but as people started to look at, okay, how can we apply this stuff to us, right? Us, whether it's Splunk Enterprise as a company or as Splunk Enterprise in your org, how can we now use this technology, these cool little compartmentalized pieces of software in our org in a sane and scalable way? And then along came Kubernetes, right? And so as you can see, each piece of so far is just building on top of one another, right? So we have Splunk Enterprise, a layer of automation, some sort of, runtime that we can plug it into and not have to, water the plants all the time. And then a kind of a control loop, or like this idea of this, high level orchestrator that would allow you to then plug things in without much toil or much, plumbing that would require you to then not ever be able to touch that thing because of fear of it's going to break, right? So the reduction of toil and the ability to make high impact, high change environments the norm, and be able to trust that, right? That it's a scalable thing that you can, spin up this flywheel that will allow you to work at a rate that is beyond what you would have ever done, right? In this world, even in this world and this world on its own. Okay, so I'm going to pause here, right? So I've kind of laid some breadcrumbs, right? And now I'm going to make it more tangible, right? So again, Splunk download. To make it visual for the visuals, like me, Splunk Enterprise, right? Again, Splunk Enterprise, right here. Log in, download. Old school, right? Old school style, right? And so that's this step here, right? We know and love it, right? Let's take a talk about Splunk Ansible for a minute. Now, there are many things. When I say Ansible, you can say puppet, you could say chef, you could say this, you could say tomato, je parle petit français. We could say it in another language. At the end of the day, you're just doing automation. And so there are kinds of automation and different goals to that automation. But when I talk about Ansible today, everything will come back to Splunk Ansible. And again, I'm not going to go into it until we show the demo, right? But I'm going to, I'm just setting the buoys, if you will, in the water. So if you get lost, right, or you're looking for your North Star, just find some of these links. And again, I'll put them under the repo properly so they're all linked out, right? So Splunk Ansible. And that's going to be a lot of the demo today, right? You're not going to see it. I'm not going to touch it directly. I'm not even going to really show it other than kind of hand waving at it, but it's there. Okay. Any questions on this layer so far? Splunk Enterprise, Splunk Ansible. Any questions? I know you don't even know what kind of questions to ask, but again, I'm just asking if what first comes to mind when you, or any thoughts, or have you seen these things before? Has anyone seen Splunk Ansible repo? Yay, nay? It's okay, you can just shout it out. Sorry, my son is calling me, of course, in the middle of a user group meeting. Yeah, sorry about that. It's a good little break in the time. So again, please, hopefully you're following along. And again, it's going to get faster, I promise. Here we go. So again, now that you know that there's some Ansible involved, which is a thing that everyone does know. If we were sitting in a room, people would be nodding. Yes, I kind of somewhat know about Ansible. Okay, let's move along the scale, get a little bit more uncomfortable for most people generally in a room, and look at Docker Splunk. So again, underneath, sorry, bear with me for a moment. I'm about to be interrupted. Sorry, let me stop sharing. One moment. Hey, sorry about that. I'll start presenting in a moment here. The joys of the new world. It's a good time to take a breath, though. So let me share again. Okay, so picking back up, we're going to leap off that Splunk Ansible rock over to the Splunk Docker rock, which is, again, a little bit more of an unknown world for most people. But again, same pattern, Splunk, Docker, Splunk, right? So we got Splunk Ansible. We're building up. Now we have Docker Splunk. Docker Splunk is the official Splunk image that Splunk publishes and is supported in Splunk documentation. So Splunk supported platforms. If you look underneath the docs in Splunk, you will see that there are there is support for containerized computing platforms. Okay. Now we're going to pause here because there must be some questions here before we go even deeper. But at this point, as we kind of leap across these rocks into unknown territories, This is supported. This is a supported Splunk published image on Docker Hub that you will find and is available for download. Let me sign in. Timeout. I'm going to take a breath too. While I sign into Docker Hub, any questions about, or has anybody overlooked the Splunk official documentation on containerized computing platforms? And do you think it's worth me like pausing here to kind of literally read through it with you guys and gals? Anybody?
Yeah, I just went through that documents that Git you have shared some time back.
Any questions on what Splunk supports? Because we see it a lot. I see it a lot in the community, questions about what do we support. And I like to kind of riff on that because support is many things to many people. So anybody have any thoughts on the Docker Splunk image? And what I've said so far is that, you know, that this is an official Splunk supported computing platform.
We ideally spin up from the latest tag itself, so that is never causing an issue. But then the question would be, if we want to spin up a cluster using Ansible and Docker, how can one achieve that?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Okay, good. Great question. And again, for those that are, you know, and again, I'll pause just one extra beat here. What was just described is exactly setting the stage for why I'm here to talk to you about the Splunk operator. But I want to pause just to really let it sink in. So as was just said, yes, that's cool. We understand, Matt. You can do cool things with automation. You can do cool things with Docker images. But we're at a level now where we're thirsting for, you know, creating something bigger, right? Something much more intricate. Any other thoughts before I move on? Because it's an important distinction to set the stage for the mindset to be in when working with what we're about to look at. Okay. So here's hold on. Am I sharing? I am, right? No, I'm not. One sec. Present now. Your entire screen. Okay. So far, so good. I'm assuming no one has lost. I'm assuming no one is lost at sea yet so far. If someone is, now speak now, and because we are about to step through a portal in a moment where, you know, the space and time will get real fast, real quick here. So here is where we are so far. So we have gotten to the official computing platforms of Splunk. And one of them, which took a lot of work on this journey. So even though back in 2017, 2018, we had this vision that Kubernetes might be this thing that could help Splunk finally allow us to deliver more like something closer to an autonomous Splunk to you, rather than a build it yourself, grow it yourself, you know, Tamagotchi or something. You know what I mean? Where you could kill it if you don't feed it, right? Or if you turn on the wrong tap, or if you feed it the wrong thing. And so this is where you know, as an architect or as someone starts to talk about large scale Splunk deployments, and as someone who has seen it all, I've seen the horrors is the joke I like to say, but it's a good thing. I've seen some great things as well. Again, I really just want to set the stage with making this real enough so that you'll actually click it and realize that there's a lot for you under here. And the faster that we get some folks jumping on and testing and playing and providing feedback into the project as we move towards a, you know, generally available future timeframe, you know, now is definitely the time, right? So I just want to like take an extra beat, squash any worries you have about the Docker image itself. But like was just said, this has kind of been kind of solved. It just works. We generally don't have problems at this level or at this layer these days. And so while customers and folks are still, you know, filling this progress bar along this journey, I guess what I'm going to do right now is I'm about to hop into the Kubernetes side of this right now, and kind of really kind of step it up a little bit. Okay. So any last questions about Splunk Enterprise being wrapped in Ansible and then wrapped in Docker for preparation for deployment to Kubernetes? Anybody have any questions before I show you exactly what? Now, because what I'm going to do is pipe reverse. I'm going to pull a Splunk, you know, record scratch, pipe reverse on you, and then we're going to go back this way. okay? Back towards Splunk Enterprise, Memento style, like a film kid would say, if you've ever seen that movie. So all aboard, last chance. We're about to dive into Kubernetes pretty deep. I'm going to show you the operator itself flying. I'm actually going to deploy it right now, right? I have actually captured the steps, hopefully for the widest adoption possible. So if you have a Mac, if you have a Windows computer, there is a version of what I'm about to show you in this repo, right? I'm going to run through the Mac one because it's just the one that I have on hand. My son is now at school on his nice Windows machine, but I did take a moment to make a Windows walkthrough because the idea here is I want to get you flying with as fast as possible, with as little, be the water, with as little drag as possible. Okay. So I'm going to jump in 0 to 100 real quick now. Thank you for being patient with me because I know you want to build a bunch of complex, crazy things, multi-site clusters and crazy, behemoth Splunk instances. But unless you've done what we're about to cover, which is deploying the Splunk operator to a Kubernetes environment, using the Splunk operator to deploy a standalone instance of Splunk D that is managed by a monitoring console. That is what I've dragged you 15 minutes out to show you. But again, I wanted to take the time to walk through everything because if I just go, let me show you. Talking about it takes longer than just doing it, but understanding it is a different story. So I'm going to jump in real quick here. Any last words before I jump into a demo here? Okay. I'll take a breath, take a sip of water. So what you're about to watch is using the Splunk operator to create a Splunk instance. I'm going to use the Mac version so that we don't get lost together and keep myself going quickly here. First, you are going to need Docker Desktop. Is that the best Kubernetes to run? Is that the be all and end all of Kubernetes? Is that even a production-esque Kubernetes deployment? No. But that is not the point. The point is to make sure that we all touch this and you see the minimum amount of code and logic that you need to understand because the standalone and the multi-site cluster are powered by the same thing, right? And so what you'll be able to do is Docker for desktop, for Windows and Mac cover most of the people in this room? Like, what do most people use here, Windows or Mac? Okay. Any other Windows users?
Windows.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, good. See, all right. Any Mac users? Maybe everybody's Windows users. I'm going to show you the Mac, but I promise I tested both. They both work almost identical with a few different items, and I'll call them out quickly here. Okay. So let's get to it, Matt. Stop talking. Stop dancing. Just show me the stuff. All right. You asked for it. All right. So here we go. So first and foremost, welcome to the Splunk operator. Okay. This is a public project. This is available to you now. And what we are about to do is we're going to cover the fundamentals of using what I'm about to show you to deploy Splunk in the matter of a couple minutes. Like I said, it takes a lot longer to talk about it than to be about it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a publicly available configuration to install the Splunk operator into a Kubernetes environment on Docker Desktop that all of you should be able to use and not run into little weird problems on nuances of Docker Desktop. Okay? What it is that we are going to do is we are going to deploy the Kubernetes operator, which is a Kubernetes pod, which is written in Golang. Let me zoom in here. So I want to zoom in even further, but I don't think I can. Anyway, I'm going to send these. I think I'll be able to share this. So anyway, the operator itself is a Kubernetes pod, its own application written in Golang that runs in a Kubernetes cluster and implements this concept of a control loop. And I know this is very small, but if I zoom in here, all the operator is doing is a continuous reconciliation, an observation and a reconciliation of the things that we as users ask the cluster for. So if I ask the cluster for a standalone Splunk instance, which is what I'm going to show you right now, the flow is I will send the configuration file, which I'm going to give you, which is also in the repo, to the Kubernetes. I'm going to submit it to the Kubernetes API. It is going to be understood by Kubernetes because the operator is in the cluster. Okay? So you can think of the operator as a way for extending Kubernetes functionality and allowing you to build custom applications on top of Kubernetes. Okay? This is not Splunk D. This is nothing to do with Splunk Enterprise itself. It is your Jarvis. It's your AI. It's your smart. It's not AI, but what it is like in a more filmic sense of that. It's your smart thing that is driving for you because it knows how. Because the people that built the software taught it what it is required to do to manage the software we're running. Okay. Once we submit the request for a Splunk instance, which I'm going to cover in a moment, it will then spawn the required things that we've asked for. And Splunk Ansible is what's underneath that's making all of this really come true. Okay? So I'm going to show you. Okay? So before I do, because again, you'll have better questions after I show you. But I'm going to jump in and show you how quickly this can be done. Okay? So on my Mac, again, this works for Windows as well. I wrote it up for Windows. If you're bored already and you want to just jump ahead, go ahead. I'm here to help you. So again, I don't have a hard stop as well. So like if people want to play on the Slack channel later, we can do that. But I am now, the first step in the demo is to pull down the UG Pune user group repo from that link I sent you. Okay, just get into a working directory. Just get into a working directory on your system and do a git clone of the actual repo. Okay, so you should end up in a folder that looks something like this. Okay.
Different screen.
Oh, sorry. Share. Stop sharing. Share. Present now. My entire screen. Share. Can you see this? Are you able to see my shell?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. So in the walkthrough, and I'm going to fast forward through the walkthrough. I went really slow to get to here. Now I'm going to go pretty quick. But again, it's all written in the walkthrough inside of the docs folder. Again, that's what you saw on that Matimo repo. Okay. What I have here is a workstation that I am able to run Docker commands, right? Okay. So Docker for desktop is installed, and I'll show that to you in a moment. So Docker for desktop, let's do it real easy. You log it in, you go to this Kubernetes section in the settings of Docker desktop, and you just turn on Kubernetes. That's it. No reason not to jump in, right? It's 2021. Like you don't even have to do anything anymore. When I did it in 2017, I had to learn all this nonsense about VMs and different flavors and yada, yada. Today, forget all that, right? Let's just flip it on. And now I have both Docker and Kubernetes at my disposal from my UI. And I usually can, and then we will need to be able to talk to Kubernetes. And you do that with a CLI command called kubectl, which again, Docker for desktop takes care of for you. And I usually just test it by saying, can I ask the API a question and get a response? And so kubectl get nodes, you can see I'm running on a Docker desktop instance, okay? It's a single node Kubernetes cluster, okay? I'm gonna, let's take a look at everything that's running in it. So again, don't worry about too much about the commands. I'm not really here to teach you the commands. Yeah, I wrote them all down there. But what I'm going to show you is that I'm already running the operator because I was playing around, but this is a bare cluster. It's literally like it comes out of the box for Docker Desktop. And in a moment, I'm just going to blow away Splunk Dev. I'm going to blow away my operator that I installed and reinstall it for you here in a moment. So in the README of the repo, and I'll put it in the notes in the CLI as well, but in the README, if you're following along on one of the walkthroughs, you'll get to the portion. You can see my full screen, right? I'm hopping around, so hopefully you can see GitLab now, right? Sorry, you got me worried that I'm not sharing everything. Okay, so you'll see there's a bunch of checks, there's a bunch of learnings in here that I try to teach you some things that I don't have time to teach you right now. But what I'm getting to the point of is we are going to create a place in the Kubernetes cluster to work, okay? And then I'm going to delete some stuff right here. So delete the operator pod so we can start again. Okay. All these commands should be run from inside the repo, inside the folder structure as described in the docs. Okay. So I just deleted my operator pod. Now let's delete my namespace completely, and we'll go real fast and show you how fast we can go from 0 to 100. Right. So delete my namespace, delete it. Okay, so now I'm at the same point as any other user here. I have Docker Desktop. I'm running Docker with Kubernetes running. I can reach Kubernetes from the command line, and I have the Kune User Group GitLab repo cloned locally, okay? The first thing I'm gonna show you is how to deploy, and then I'm gonna break apart the pieces and teach you a little bit about it, and then we'll do a time check, okay? So, in order to deploy the actual Splunk deployment, we are going to first of all create a namespace in the Kubernetes environment to work in. Okay, so I'm going to jump into here, create a namespace. Okay, so I'm just going to copy pasta everything, and you're going to see now I have the ability. Now I have a namespace. Git control get namespace. Right. I've got a Splunk dev namespace to work in. Now, I'm going to deploy the Splunk operator pod using the public deployment manifests available at this URL. If you open this URL, you can read them or download them directly. Okay? What this is doing is it is deploying that Splunk operator pod that was written in Golang and is designed to sit in a Kubernetes cluster and listen for people who order Splunk. Okay? Think of it as a line cook, right? Waiting to cook some burgers, right? And so, or whatever your local delicacy is. And so what we are going to do now is we are going to ask that operator for a Splunk instance. So there is some extra steps here that you can go into, like you can open the logs for that operator pod and see, what's going on under there, see some of the controller runtimes and some of the stuff that you really don't have to care about. But really what we're going to do is go quick and say, no, forget all that. I don't care about the engine. I just want to drive the car really fast. Okay, let's deploy Splunk. This is what the operator allows us to boil Splunk down to. I am able to declaratively create a YAML that will be very simple or very complex, depending on what I'm trying to do, and whether it's a standalone or a multi-site cluster, it is just parameters in this kind of YAML. Okay, and I will show you some more advanced stuff first, but again, we have to graduate through this first. Okay, because a lot of the logic you need is here anyways, and you don't need a huge data center to actually make it fly, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to install Splunk in Kubernetes, because that's what I'm here to show you, right? And I've just done that by simply running this command against this file. Okay, I've said to Kubernetes and called the operator, and I've said, hey, operator, I would really like a standalone instance of Splunk so that I can show the Pune user group what Splunk looks like, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to watch as behind the scenes, not only does the operator receive our request, but now I'm going to take a gulp while it does the work for me. This is how the future looks like this, right? It's not that a computer is going to take your job. Just somebody that knows how to use a computer might, right? So, and I mean that with love, right? Like, again, I am from ops, and I know that that's just a joke, tongue in cheek. Like, you're always going to need a human operator, right? I still needed Maddie Moore. I still needed somebody to know what to ask for, right? But what we're trying to do is we're trying to take away the pain of translating that ask into a Splunk deployment that I can log into and use, okay? So I'm gonna pause for a moment, take a big gulp of water, but as you can see on my screen, what we're waiting for is the Splunk Dev standalone, which is our standalone instance that we're gonna log into and use as Splunk users, but also the monitoring console, which is automatically deployed to monitor that standalone instance or any other instances that are deployed in the operator deployment. Okay, so it takes a minute or two, so I'm going to pause here. Any questions with what I just like went really fast through so far?
Can we also define the replica sets for the pods that are getting created?
Yes, so you can get very declarative. So let's go into the doc while that's cooking. Is if you go into, for those of you that want to dig a little deeper or that are a little bit more advanced, I left a breadcrumb trail in the GitLab where if you want to see the common configuration pattern, you will link to the Splunk operator GitLab or GitHub. Remember, one of the first things I showed, and you're going to read the doc on custom resource guide. And you're going to look at the different custom resources, the common spec parameters that you're able to utilize from Kubernetes. We expose some Kubernetes concepts directly to you, right? But most of what you're going to do also is you'll want to review what the custom resource does, and then you can kind of jump off from there if you need something. But yes, you can control what is being spawned very granularly underneath. Okay, and I'll show you a more. Okay, so just to level set for everyone again, what I just did, like in 30 seconds, if you blink or fell asleep in the first 30 minutes, you missed it, right? Which is, with a couple of strokes of copy pasta, I have not only one line installed the operator project 2.1 beta, right? But I've also asked it to install a Splunk standalone instance with some very simple configurations, right? And now if I take a look in that namespace that I created, sorry. Everything's running, everything's ready, and now we can log in. Okay? So it took me 15, 20 minutes to tell you, just to level set you mentally on what you're about to watch, so that you don't think I'm selling you something that you don't want. And I'm not selling you anything, but I am selling you that you should get involved in this project. And I would like to rip it open now and show you that just as simply as I did that standalone, you could go deploy a 20 node behemoth if you wanted to. Okay? But everything that does a standalone, for the most part, is the same or is built on the same logic controllers as if you ask for a multi-site cluster. And so that was a great question, is if you want to dive deeper on what is a standalone, Matt, what is the definition? Well, I want to make sure I'm clear when I say these have now become Kubernetes native resources. Literally, when I say, hey, Kubernetes, do you have any standalones? Kubernetes understands now that I'm asking, do you have any Splunk standalones? Right? I could just as easily say, kubecontrol get, let's go look at the custom resources so that I show you. Oops, sorry, did I go full screen here? No. Custom resources. Oh, that's what happened. Sorry. So like I said, if you go in the GitHub repo or the Git docs, the custom resources are Splunk operator docs, custom resources, okay? And any one of these custom resources listed here, let me show you right here. Standalone, license master, search head cluster, cluster master, indexer cluster are now native resources that will run in your cluster. And so if you, instead of a standalone, if you're like, Matt, a standalone's boring, even though you're telling me to put on my safety glasses and don't touch the spinning blades, I want to go touch the spinning blades, then that's down here. But I will say that if you're going to start messing with search head clusters and cluster masters, you need nodes, you need actual workloads. Do not do that on Docker desktop. And what I mean by that more directly is you need some money. Right? Because you need some big nodes, right? Because remember, if you tell me you need to go build this on a small node, but you're going to have a bad time, right? And then you're going to have bugs that are not related to anything other than resource contention, right? So yes, you can go nuts, and yes, you can create these things, and yes, it's as easy as the standalone. So just follow me here with the standalone a little bit deeper before you jump into the, the matrix. And the reason I say that is, and we'll do a time check here, because again, I don't have a hard stop, but I don't want to go over, I want to be respectful of your time. The reason I say that is these concepts come from another time, another space and dimension. Even the indexer cluster concept at one point in Splunk did not exist. And then it existed. And then there may be a time where it does not exist anymore for you. So before you jump way off in the deep end, I just recommend, let's get a big, swath of people looking at the automation and things that it takes to run a standalone. Because again, remember, the standalone Docker image that I've just deployed, technically the Docker image is a standalone image. That's a supported compute platform for the most part. It's just one image, right? And when Splunk operator is supported, that just, it just starts to build on top of each other. Now it becomes the supported deployments, which are essentially boiled down to the custom resources that Splunk releases. Okay? Any questions really quickly there? I'm going to rip it open now and show you a little bit more of what I just built, okay? Any big questions here, though? Let's take a look. Let's see if it worked. Let's see if this Mac guy is full of it, right? So first of all, how do I get into any one of these? I did not provide a password, right? So that opens up a whole nother discussion, and I'm going to show you a couple concepts visually before we jump in all the way. And just for those that are groaning and saying, Matt, no, I need an indexer cluster. I want to play with the big stuff. Fine, don't worry, it's there, it's coming. I will show you, right? But the value propositions are what I'm going to show you first. Right? Because that's why we do any of this, right? So I've built my little standalone, right? And I'm going to cover a couple of items. One, where are my secrets, right? Where are my keys? And I'm not going to cover a advanced demonstration of vaults and secret management in the cloud and blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to hand wave at that right now and just show you how we go get the keys and how the Splunk operator created and distributed those keys, okay? So if we go back to the walkthrough, we're down at this point here where we wait for the resources to come up. You can log into the, you can watch the logs. Oh yeah, actually, let me show you this first because before I jump too far ahead, because I want to bring you all back to those major rocks, right? So if you check for the logs on the Splunk standalone image that the Kubernetes operator has built for us, it starts to look familiar again if you've ever seen Ansible, right? So again, I'm just trying to take some of the sheen off of this, and that yes, even though I've deployed this in some future, some future data center situation here, right? It's just wrappers, right? That's all Kubernetes is. It's just wrapping some great concepts that we all use into a really easy to use environment. So again, just to show you what I did there. I just said, hey, let's start to dig into some of those pods that the operator created, right? So I can take a look at what Voodoo Matt has just shown me. And all I'm doing is asking Kubernetes, sorry, I didn't mean to run the command. I'm just asking Kubernetes to show me the logs of this standalone pod, and that's how you can get back down to that Ansible that we were talking about that's powered by Splunk Ansible, okay? As long as the pod has come up and is ready and the play recap has finished, that instance is ready to use. So I'm going to use it now. So let's use it. So again, how do I find the keys to log into this thing? So I'm going to do, again, everything we have built has been created as a Kubernetes native resource. So even the keys are there. So if I do Splunk and Splunk dev get secrets, in the Splunk in the Splunk dev namespace, you will see that the Splunk operator has generated tokens and secrets that are required for the automation and use of these items. If you open any one of these by saying, get that secret for me, obviously, you need permissions to be able to do this, by the way. Like Kubernetes will not just let anybody open the secrets, right? But again, we're going to wave over a lot of stuff here. Get secret Splunk standalone, output YAML. And you'll see that the secrets have been, all the major secrets that have been created and managed are stored as Kubernetes secrets, and they are base 64 encoded. So I'm going to take the Splunk password here, and I'm going to decode it so that we can log in, okay? Again, all of this is covered very, very thoroughly in the walkthrough, and I'm moving kind of quickly now because I know I don't want to take forever, and there's a lot of stuff here, and I want to kind of just take a moment to breathe with y'all for a moment, but let me decode. This is one of the things that's a little different on Windows, and I did capture how to do it in PowerShell. Yes, I did. But this is how you do it on Linux or Mac OS. So I'm going to take this key, right? And I'm going to do a cool trick in Kubernetes, which is I'm going to port forward my shell to my actual Kubernetes pod, because everything I'm showing you here is running in my data center, but I have not exposed it to the outside world, which is a cool development feature, right? You don't let traffic in unless you control any of the traffic that comes in here at a very granular level, which is a whole nother talk. But what we're going to do is we're going to use a cool trick that Docker Desktop or Kubernetes and kubectl allows you to use to port forward your shell, or sorry, your local laptop to your Kubernetes pod. Okay, so that you can actually use Splunk. Because like I said, I want to log in now, right? So what you're seeing is I'm saying, okay, I'm ready to log in. I got my key. I decoded it. Now, do you always have to decode that key and all that? No. But just follow with me here, because again, I showed you how we automate the creation of these keys and manage them, right? There's a big topics there. But now if I go into my browser, just my local browser, and I do 127.0.0.1 port 999, HTTPS. And I usually, I do it in a new browser for Firefox, just because my history gets messed up a little bit. You should hit that connection or that instance. Let me get there. There we go. Again, you don't have a real cert, so yes, accept the risk. And now I am face to face with a brand new, out of the oven, 5 minutes old Splunk instance that is fully created and ready for my user to log in and use. Okay. Not only that, but I have also an instance that is a monitoring console that we can go look at in a moment here as well. And again, normally you would have full network configuration. So when you are port forwarding, you will hit little bumps in the road. So it's not as if you run into little lag problems or you can't hit a page or a URL. Again, this is just to get you started. In a big environment, you'd be going through an enterprise proxy like a Ingress or Istio or some of the Linkerd or something. But for now, as you can see, I have a fully baked Splunk configured image. I could actually install apps here as well, and we'll get into some of the what ifs with you in a moment. But I just wanted to show you that not only is it up, but it has been configured. Like all the instances that should be forwarding to your indexing layer are. My monitoring console, it's set up and ready to go. Let's go look at that one, right? In this instance, it is going to be the same password for the monitoring console, because again, the keys are cascaded down for the deployment. So instead of port forwarding to the standalone instance, I'm going to run the same command, but to my monitoring console instance. Okay. Come back here. I usually close the tab just to clear, just to make sure, because again, you're reusing ports and stuff. Log in, same decoded password. Oh, oops, I copied the wrong thing. Let's go back and get our decoded password. Oh. Again, you'll run into some funniness if you're reusing ports and port forwarding. Let me close. 1 sec. Clear that. Kube control. Let's look again at the secret just to make sure. Splunk dev get secrets. Let's grab the monitoring console secret. Kube control and Splunk dev get secrets. Output YAML just to make sure. NYS3 echo. Use this one. Yeah, it was the same. So I was making sure. Again, so you will run into a little bit of funniness in your browser when you're port forwarding locally. And remember, this is for development, so it's just to get you up and running quickly. We didn't want to cover everything in ingresses, but there is a bunch of items that you can cover inside of. Let me bring up the port forward again. Okay, let's close this window. Let's close this one. HTTPS 127.0.0.1. It's not letting me hit. I'll try and clear the browser. Also trying Chrome. HTTPS. Oh, maybe it isn't. Yeah, so again, I'll have to look at the actual instance itself. It might not have been serving HTTPS where my instance is, and I'll show you how I configured that. So this is the monitoring console, right? Again, it should be fully wired up to be ready to use. And again, I bring you here because this is kind of a little bit of if you've been around Splunk a little while, this is something that we've always kind of been asked for. And again, we're working on it. Again, all this is beta, right? So, depending on when you cook it or when you try it, this will work. I've come in a couple of times where it's like this, hanging a little bit. So again, little things like this is why we want you to try, but it does work. And there are little, troubleshooting tricks that I can do to make sure it absolutely works. But the point here is not to show you it all perfectly working. Although it will work in a moment. Sometimes you have to give it a moment. I could even hijack it just by doing the good old same tricks we always do, right? But again, the point is the automation is already there to make this kind of things like that have been asked for a long time to already be automated, right? Make the monitoring console come up, automate it so I don't have to go in and be a human and press that dreaded apply changes. And again, I'll come back in here in a minute, see if it'll correct itself, because last time I did it, I saw this, but it just meant I had to walk away for a minute. So let's close that for a moment and then take a big step back. So what I've basically shown you here is a getting started guide that will allow you to get with a standalone instance, which is you should use that as your intro. If you've never touched Kubernetes or Docker or Ansible or any of the operator concepts, then I would recommend that these two labs become your intro so that we could get people kind of up to speed and contributing back to the project, even if it's just in reporting issues as Splunk users to say, hey, I want to do this. I'm trying to do this. I need to do that. And I'm not clear on how I do that or what should I do. But basically, all roads for automating in Kubernetes point to the use of Splunk Operator. It is built on the work of Splunk Ansible and Splunk Docker, and it all wraps together finally here under the operator framework, which again is just Splunk's way of trying to attack the ever-growing problem of how do we take users to 0 to hero instantly, like quickly, right? And so you can read about the operator framework. It is an industry thing. It is not a Splunk thing, right? It's an industry framework that is being driven by, a lot of the Kubernetes folks, or people that are involved. But basically, everything I've just shown you is in the quest for this chart right here, which is the operator framework, operator capabilities. So as I pause and we step back, and then hopefully I go check the monitoring console in a minute and it's all clean again. I'm going to pause. Any questions so far on the repo that I've shared, what's in it, what I've just shown you, and why this matters? Is there any questions as I stop here like 45 minutes in after showing you that I was able to bake an instance pretty quick, and then it used a lot of advanced Ansible, Docker, Kubernetes configurations, but that they're all written out step by step right here. Any questions on this, what I've shown you so far? I know it's a lot, but like just your gut. Just tell me what's your gut? Like when you see these things, do you have the confidence to go grab one of these markdown files and try doing this on your desktop? I guess is what I would love to hear the answer to.
Yes.
Anybody else? Anybody else never touched Docker desktop? Is there someone in the room that does not even have Docker desktop installed on Windows or Mac? I don't want to single you out. I just want to find out if somebody in the crowd will be able to validate that I've given you enough breadcrumbs to make sure that you get the Docker install correct, like that you get to this point, right? That you have this, whether it's on Windows and right here, whether you're on Windows or Mac, it doesn't matter because it's the exact same UI, right? So this Docker desktop, as long as you get to this point, you have it installed and you have Kubernetes enabled, and then you jump into your shell, whether it's Mac OS terminal or PowerShell, and then go into a directory and just test, hey, can I even do this? Right? And so if I would love if, today, whether we're in the Slack chat, when I stop talking, when we get off this call, when you guys want to go to bed or get dinner or whatever, I would love to be able to make sure that everybody here was able to at least get to this point. And then, like I said, I'll be available in the chat to answer any questions on either one of these documents if you get stuck. I heard a lot of Windows folks, so I'm going to go through that real quick to show you some of the differences. But as I do, any thoughts? First thoughts. Did I scare you? Did I leave anybody behind? Did I lose you? Do you want me to answer some very just generic questions about this? Your feedback is crucial. For sure.
This was a lab kind of setup. So in an real-time enterprise infrastructure, how can we plan to implement this? Like if I want to, especially answering the question on scalability. So how can we address that sort of issue?
Yes. So if you are going to, I knew it was going to come up. So if you are going to do it at enterprise level, again, like I said, even if I was working with you with your Splunk account team, I would force you to do what I just showed you before even entertaining the idea of talking about doing any of this with a customer, right? To be honest, right? But once we get past that, to actually so what we're doing with our customers in the field in the beta right now is we require the customer to bring their own Kubernetes, right? Like point us to your Kubernetes gods, right? And we work with your vendor, not just like, don't point us to some, like, unless you're running your business on some experimental brand of Kubernetes, save it. Frankly, right? That's just Matt talking. I'm just trying to have fun here, but like get EKS, get GKE, get AKS, or get OpenShift, right? And then what we would do is we would require you usually to get 3 or 5 nodes, right? And we would walk you through this step right here, which is, so again, I have left a breadcrumb trail for those of you that were like, Matt, dude, show me the big stuff. Like, show me the big enterprise stuff. Here's where that goes. To answer your question, get out of my face. Where are you? I lost my browser. Okay, escape. Okay. So if you go to the Splunk operator, right? What you're going to do is you're going to look at some of the, not only the examples, right? Here for configuring Splunk enterprise deployments, right? And so it covers many of the major things. Oh, you want to build a cluster master, do you? Right? Okay. Here's the YAML to build the base cluster master. Here's how you build the, how you make sure that these pods get spun up in a enterprise Splunk deployment on a enterprise variant of Kubernetes. Okay. And then we leave it up to the customer to define how many indexers they want to like push this thing for. And usually customers are around 10 to 20 nodes, very healthy sized nodes. Again, remember, this is just Splunk D. This is not some cloud native app built for handling front end HTTP requests. Okay, so the nodes need to be spec'd properly, and then usually what we'll do is we will walk you through the deployment of the custom resource definitions that are required to build the architecture that you're after. Also, we will then cover deploying or just talking about ingress patterns. And so again, Splunk operator docs, you would start with things like multi-site examples, and then you would look at things like ingress so that you can start to learn about how you're actually, like, let's say when you get really excited and our customers see, what? Matty Mo just walked in here and replaced hundreds of lines of custom code with a stroke of a command. Wow, I want to use that right now. How do I make that live? How do I start pumping data into that? Well, then you get into the whole world of like the networking layer, which again, whole nother planet, right? But again, it can be done and it totally works. And here are the walkthroughs that you can use to get it done. Okay. Any questions on that? There are multi-site cluster examples. There are smart store examples. I recommend you absolutely start to play with things like MinIO or Smart Store or custom S3 APIs that you may own in your organization. And then also start having conversations around build pipeline. Like, how are you going to manage all these things when you want to plug them into an enterprise development pipeline? Okay. Any questions after that answer? Does that answer your question? Again, everything I just showed you is completely the exact same. Yeah, everything's the exact same. You're gonna create a little YAML file like we did, right? You're gonna create it for a multi-site cluster. You're gonna go to town on a few different configuration examples, right? And you're gonna follow the custom resource definition to build that. But again, if you're gonna build that, I would recommend you have at least a 3-node cluster with some healthy specs, like Splunk minimum specs. Okay. Any other questions on that? Again, bringing it back maybe less out of the enterprise big stuff. And again, I'm not saying that because it's not valid. It definitely works. It works so well at the enterprise level, that's why I'm here talking to you today, because we need to like now start to rally the troops together. The traditional Splunkers, the non-Splunkers, the Kubernetes folks, the advanced CI and release development folks. There's kind of a new kind of Splunk. The Splunk COE landscape is changing. Let's just say that, right? How about anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody still on this call that would literally be starting from scratch? Like anybody on this call that would literally be walking away from this call today, starting from absolute zero? Okay. If you are, holler at me in the Slack chat. The last thing I'm going to show you because I see we're over. I think we're over. Time check. Time check. If you guys, I'll keep going for a couple of minutes. If you are all okay, feel free to drop off. If you guys need to make an announcement for the user group, like don't let me keep you here for too long. Rohit, anybody else, you need to step in for any reason right now?
Yeah, just one announcement. So guys, we do have a global Splunk meetup week from 7th Feb to 14th Feb. Since it's a virtual, so take the advantage by joining the sessions of your interest. Pune User Group has also scheduled a session on custom correlation searches in Splunk ES, which is going to be on 11th February at 7 p.m. by Sumant from Bits.io. So we are waiting for your response. We are waiting for your RSVP to this event too. And we do have some giveaways to the lucky attendees. So show your interest in our next meetup and we will meet you there.
Awesome. So I'm going to show one last thing, if you'll allow me, if you'll humor me for one last minute, because I think I've stoked some interest from some folks that are going to get into some deep stuff real fast. So last thing I'm going to show you before just covering some Windows nuances and then leaving you alone for the day to play, or for the night to play, is because I've gotten some questions about, taking this to the next level, and I don't want to leave this as magic to you. I just want to show you that if you want to get into the nitty gritty of, configuring Splunk custom, not just a blank Splunk, I've also added a Docker, it's an empty Docker folder in the repo, okay? And I just want to show you why that's there and why I put it there in the walkthrough. All of the stuff that I just showed you there is driven, like I said, by Ansible running in Docker code that's being orchestrated by Kubernetes operator, right? So again, let's go back to the main page just for take a breath. We're using the Splunk operator on a Kubernetes environment with a Splunk Docker image that's built with Ansible to run Splunk, okay? And so I'm gonna dive deep right here. I'm gonna go real deep right here and show you in the walkthrough where you can see where all those yummy Splunk knobs and whistles are, so that you can start thinking about how you can make your Splunk a reality in this. And it's in the section of the walkthrough called "What is a default.yaml?" Okay? And I'm gonna be real fast here. I'm not gonna take too much time. I just wanna make sure I showed it to you before you leave. Where am I here? This is pretty small too. So I'm back in the GitHub repository that I pulled local to my desktop, right? I'm going to change into the Docker repository, and I'm going to generate a default.yaml with this Docker command. This Docker command is actually using the Splunk 8.1.1 image as a utility to create a default.yaml. What is a default.yaml? The purpose of a default.yaml is to define standard variables that control how Splunk gets set up. This is particularly important when deploying clustered topologies, as there are frequent variables that you need to be consistent across all of the members of the deployment. Okay? Now, what does that really mean? Well, what it means is all that magic that I just showed you is built on some amazing work done in Splunk Ansible to boil down literally most of the ocean, right? Most of the Splunk ocean into a Splunk or into an Ansible environment file that is used by the Docker image at runtime to make Splunk dance. Okay? So in an enterprise environment, all the things that you could imagine, right? Java installations, cluster master settings, pipeline settings, SSL settings, multi-site settings, Surge Captain, like everything that you would want to get, in trouble with is there. And you should definitely spend some time reading about the default.yaml and its role in all of this. And then I would recommend you go back in my repo here. It's public. You go after you've gone through all this. I left a nugget for you in the Splunk, in the Boston UG, User Group Boston, December 2020. I'll put it in the chat. And the reason I leave this is because if you start flying with that operator and you blow through getting that standalone working and you want to start doing some advanced stuff, this picks up where I'm leaving off today, where you're able to shove a couple Splunk apps that you would like installed when your Splunk instance comes out of the oven. And you will also be able to configure some advanced settings with that default.yaml, because what I'm essentially doing in this walkthrough in Boston is showing how you can take all the stock available stuff that I showed you today and create your own image, create your own adventure, create your own. You can see here, I also have a public image in case you want to play with mine instead of setting it all up. That installs, Python Scientific, the machine learning toolkit, app for infrastructure, track me, like emoji app, like a bunch of things, as well as a custom default.yaml that controls how that Splunk instance behaves. Okay? So again, that's just if you get through these two walkthroughs, I mean, again, I'm really, my goal here is to, you've heard me talk about Kubernetes. I mean, I get razzed in the user group. You mentioned Kubernetes. There's usually an @MattyMo troll coming like 30 seconds later, right? Because people know and have heard about this. But my goal is that we leave this and 20 people now in the Splunk community actually go and get to this point. And instead of, what ifs, we can start, I'm happy to start talking about what is. Right, because again, let's go check on that monitoring console, see if it's a dud, if it let me down, or if it's working now. But any questions on the Ansible file? And again, please go through the. I'm as you can tell, I'm all over the place. That's how my brain works. But that's why I wrote the walkthrough, so that you can go through each place and go to things and see like all the settings explained in the default.yaml, right? So, but that's just too deep right now. I just wanted to kind of mention it. So while I go back and try to log back into this monitoring console, any last feedback as people that, you may or may not want to use this, you may not care about this, you may be a complete noob to all things that I covered today, you might be bored with all things today. Anything that anybody wants to share as I try to get in this monitoring console and hope that the demo gods didn't curse me and give me a broken monitoring console? Take a breath. You can only get a word in when I'm typing, so.
Yes, Matt. So definitely this makes the life easier with the operator. I mean, natively using it and trying to build it from scratch, the operator would solve a few of the things, automatically. So I think this is something which we would like to explore more for sure.
Excellent. Again, as much as I can make.
I would like to add what Bali said. We need to try this out, and obviously that default.yaml is an ocean by itself. So need to work on that to understand that before we work on the details of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, my goal is to make sure that people don't get analysis paralysis. You know, trying to it's kind of tough to explain, but it's like some of this comes back to that suspend your reality again, where even internally at Splunk, like when we're trying to gather critical mass around people that can support this or that even have the will to learn some of this. It's one of the big challenges is we want to make sure that we can get you started on last page first, right? We want to make sure that you can go backward in time, right? From back from the end to the beginning, end product to the beginning. Change shells here. Okay, so let's check on this. Actually, this is good. This is actually a good demo. Sorry, again, anyone, please feel free to drop off. I'm going to drop off after in like 5 more minutes, but I promise. But while I'm here, I want to show you this. So here's my lab, right? So Docker Desktop is not my lab. Like somebody said, hey, how do I do this? Like when I got to take this into the big enterprise. Here's what I use when I take exactly what I just showed into the big enterprise. This is my lab. It is a single node Kubernetes cluster that has 12 cores and 96 gigs of RAM. Okay, so I run like full deployments, whether it be like I run my personal Splunk instance is a standalone because why would I want any more problems, right? But when I have to work with customers, that's the kind of lab I'm working on, just to share with you. And I just want to show you something that I added to the document here that's really helpful. Is you can connect to multiple clusters, right, on your desktop, and sometimes on my Mac or my Windows config, I have to override my shell. And so here I put, I didn't put this in the Windows walkthrough, but I'll try and get the exact same example. I think once you've installed Chocolatey and Git and Bash, I believe this command is legit on Windows, but I have to try. But what it allows me to do, and the walkthrough has this as well, is it walks you through finding the default kube control file that on your desktop that Docker for Mac uses, so that you can learn about it, right? There's a lot of things to explore. But on Windows and Mac, you will find the default Docker desktop configuration for Kubernetes under home path.kube. And if we open this config, this is your keys to the cluster. So this is how my CLI is able to talk to Kubernetes. And this is a fundamental building block for access to the cluster. So you can get, if you're really a nerd, you want to go in to see how Docker Desktop deploys Kubernetes, you can explore this. I'll leave that rabbit hole there for you. But for today, all I'm going to show you is a handy command that exports the kube config file that you want to use. So now when I do get nodes, you can see I've switched my context back to Docker Desktop. You can also do that with kube control, but it's limited to what kube control can see. So if you have some custom clusters that you want to connect to, this is just a handy command to set the kube config to start talking to the right cluster again, because you definitely don't want to apply settings to the wrong cluster. But let's see if the monitoring console is working, and I'll let you all go. Kube control. Okay, so we're forwarding again to my pod. Let's go to Firefox. Seems to work. This pod has HTTPS enabled. Oh no, it doesn't. That's what I mean. That's what I learned. The monitoring console by default does not look like it builds with HTTPS, even though my pod does. It doesn't like this. The cookie. It doesn't like the cookie. Something's wrong with that. So I'm going to blow it away. I'm going to blow it away, and reinstantiate it. And then on the Slack chat, because I'm not going to keep you here watching it, but on the Slack chat, I'll update you on what I find by this. And again, why this is what we need the most, right? Is we need you to pick, the standalone or the multi-site or the advanced configurations that you think you're going to use in your org. If you run into any problems, hit us up on the Slack chat, or more importantly, in the issues. Don't be afraid. Any issue is valid. Just jump in here and open an issue for any kind of support that you need, right? Whether it's Splunk related, or you're trying to figure something out, or it's not working. Because where I want to leave you at with all of this is the beta is active right now. We're working with large and small customers alike. You don't have to wait to get involved though. This is all available to be picked up and used today. And keep an eye on the Splunk Operator project as we continue to move towards a more GA release. Okay? Any major questions? Is anybody lost? Does everyone know where to go to get started? Did you not see something today that you wish you wanted, that you could have seen?
So
Cool. So I'm just going to turn my camera back on real quick here, stop presenting. So again, lots of stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, head over to the GitHub or the GitLab to get yourself oriented. Get yourself looking at the, it looks weird there with that sun coming in there. Get yourself oriented with some of the code, some of the items. Remember, the big rocks are Splunk, Operator, Repo. Start there and work back toward, or start from Splunk Enterprise and work through Docker Splunk. Play around with that, maybe get used to that on Docker for desktop. If you have any questions, hit us up in the Docker or Kubernetes room. Then when you're what I'm trying to say is, please don't delay. Please don't let the thought that you need to understand all the systems hinder your ability to start playing with them and breaking stuff, frankly. Like, go ahead and break it, because a lot of what's going on in the next, let's just say 6 months, is going to be like the quality and the ability for this to solve real life problems for people is going to be based on, the uptake that we can get in the community for sure, from some folks that are actually, faced with implementing this. And trust me, I know that whether or not you know it, someone in your org is thinking about the question of how do we stuff Splunk into a container to make life easier for our admins, so we can focus on app development and content and utilization of the platform, even if you're not a Splunk Cloud customer. Ideally, I want you to buy Splunk Cloud. but at the end of the day, if you have reasons to run Splunk on-prem, we want to do it with you in a more cloud-native way with some of these tooling sets that are all around us in your organizations, without having to reinvent the wheel. Because if you go on Splunk Answers or you go on Splunk Ideas or anything like that, you'll see a bunch of questions about things that this world allows us to solve as Splunk as users, not Splunk go build, hey, Splunk, go implement GitHub or go implement change or version control into your product, right? Things like that. Again, there are some, traditionally people would say, hey, you should support Git. But really, what I think if we step back and talk about is, we need to talk about a larger pipeline, a larger development and deployment pipeline within Splunk in your organization. Because let's be honest, we have a joke also in the actual community, which is, our lab is your prod. Don't let that be true anymore. Okay? Because that's not Splunk's fault. If you only have one Splunk and that's the only place you Splunk, then our lab is your prod. And that's not how software is developed these days, right? We have an environment, we test QA, and we launch it into production after we've gone through an extensive build that is repeatable, tested, automated, and instrumented, right? So that's the world that this is trying to get us ready for, is that we can take the operator and plug it into your CI/CD pipeline. You're using GitLab? That's cool. Use GitLab. Here's how you talk to the operator to go from code to actually deployment, right? Oh, you're using GitHub. Great. Same thing, right? Oh, you're not using any of that. Well, now's a good time to get started. Right, so this is what it's trying to lead us to. So don't be scared, don't be shy, don't think that the world is changing underneath your feet. But that's the truth. It is, it is. But there's a lot of rocks that you can hold on to. Remember, it's just Splunk Enterprise. We did not do anything to Splunk D. Everything everything Aleem knows about and why he has that funny hat, it still applies, but it's inside of a wrapper now. And so Ansible, maybe or maybe you don't know it, but let me tell you, most organizations, they got someone kicking around that has it, that at least can make their way through what we did there. Because we don't want you to go use Ansible. Let's be clear. That's not what I said, right? We are just showing you that we are using Ansible, right? That's a different story, okay? And then, if you're ready and you're comfortable past that, then go into Docker. If you play around with the Docker image, remember that's a standalone supported compute platform as of 2021 today for Splunk. Start getting your hands dirty with it. And a lot of people will say, yeah, but I'll look at it when you support multi-site. Well, guess what? Operators here, because like we said, we were never going to deliver you multi-site by hand. Are you nuts? Right? We give you the Docker image and then we tell you to go build a multi-site cluster out of some bash script that is different at every customer. No. Worlds are changing, right? Matty Mo's seen a lot of Splunks. I've seen a lot of Splunks, and they don't look alike. And that's what this is going to help change. When I fly into a big bank in Canada, or if I'm talking to somebody in India, or if I'm talking to someone in the UK, I shouldn't have to do this like 6 months, follow the scribble on the wall to understand what has happened to our poor Splunk D, right? So I'll stop there. I'm well over, but a lot of people are, kind of reached out and they were excited for this. So I didn't want to cut it short or anything. I know it's a lot, but hit me up in the user group chat. Hit me up. I probably talked to some of you all at your job anyway. So reach out anyways. And I hope this is useful. And really, it's all just me talking until you actually try it. If a tree falls in a forest, did it ever happen? So give it a shot, and I'll help you out if you get stuck. Okay?
Yeah, great session. Thanks a lot, Matt, for your session. It was really nice. And we'll definitely gonna try this soon. And we'll definitely reach out to you in case we fail somewhere.
Yeah, and the GitHub goes live. Yeah, the GitLab is live in public. So if anything you all feed back to me, I'm going to update it immediately, right? So if you play with it today or on the weekend, don't be shy, and let me know. Let me know if this was helpful. All feedback is welcome, positive, negative, whatever. We just want to make the user group better, and hopefully the product better as a result.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. We have recorded this session as well. So if anyone wants to replay, so they can, we'll post the session on YouTube and we'll send the link out on that user group.